First, it was Free Britney and the documentary about the pop star's controversial conservatorship.
Why is she still in this? Why is her dad making all of her decisions?
Then came the award-winning Netflix film, I Care a Lot.
The court has appointed me to be your legal guardian.
What?
Now there is a growing awareness about guardians, people who make a living managing the life and money of somebody the court deems to be unfit to manage their own affairs.
I'm here to help.
For many families in Florida, guardianships are not just a headline out of Hollywood. They are a dark reality.
They lived in a very nice home and they were happy. And then the authorities came and removed them from their home, and the rest went downhill.
He was a World War II veteran. She was a mother of 7. Joan Stanton says her parents, Richard and Betty Weber, were ready to enjoy their golden years. Instead, they lost everything they'd worked for under the control of a court-appointed guardian. The trouble started with a rift among the siblings. Some weren't happy with Joan's management of their parents' affairs. So they went to court, and that's when a Palm Beach County judge appointed a professional guardian to step in.
Did you have any sense of what it meant?
No, I had no idea.
What it meant, she learned, was that a man named Linrod Douglas was given control of all of Richard and Betty's money. For the time he spent paying their bills, taking them to doctor's appointments, running errands, he could charge up to $95 an hour, draining their savings. The guardian controlled who could see the Webers and when, restricting Joan's access to her parents. He also had final say on where they lived. In this case, BP Assisted Living in West Palm Beach.
He begged me to get him out of there. Begged me, and I'm like, Dad, I'm doing everything I can.
Joan suspected abuse at the nursing home and mismanagement of the estate, but the court repeatedly denied her request to end the guardianship.
And there's nothing I could do about it. Nothing.
In 2018, BP Assisted Living was raided and shut down. Its administrators arrested for abusing and neglecting residents. Months later, investigators started to look into Linrod Douglas. Court records show he stole $10,000 from the Webers and hundreds of thousands more from 5 other wards. His arrest came too late to help the Weber family. Under his guardianship, their house was sold and most of their money spent. Richard and Betty died later that same year.
What's the hardest part for you today?
The anger I feel. I don't want to be this angry. You know, I just live a nice, quiet life. I'm an animal advocate. I volunteer a lot, and I'm always angry.
Angry at who?
At the system, at the people that did this to my mother and father. It didn't have to be this way.
Around 1.5 million Americans are under guardianship right now. In Palm Beach County, there are nearly 3,000 cases with guardians controlling an estimated $1 billion in assets. A new Inspector General's review found that last year, guardians in Florida racked up more than $1 million in unverifiable expenditures.
Everything about this guardianship stuff is just wrong.
Dr. Sam Sugar is the founder of the group Americans Against Abusive Probate Guardianships and has written a book about guardian and conservator fraud.
It may be legal because a judge puts his signature on it, but at every step of the process, there is conflict of interest, there is the opportunity for corruption, the presence of massive amounts of lies. And it's just something that rubs me and so many others the wrong way.
Problem number 1, he says, you don't need a special degree, certification, or even license to become a guardian in Florida. Just 1 week of training. Once in charge of a ward, guardians are required to submit an annual report to the court. But as Joan points out, that report typically includes just 1 bank statement. With greater oversight, she believes thieves like Linrod Douglas would be caught sooner.
There are numerous protections.
Gina Rossi-Scheiman, executive director of the Florida State Guardianship Association, says fraud is rare, pointing out that the state revoked just 2 guardianship registrations last year due to alleged misconduct.
The clerks and the judges are vigilant. I know from being a guardian vigilant in overseeing estates. It's not the outrageous racket that it appears to be in Hollywood.
But as the Webbers' real-life drama makes clear, it takes just one bad actor to do a great deal of damage.
What advice would you have for somebody so that they don't end up like your family did?
Oh, don't have any animosity in the family. Everybody make the agreements and get along, and do not, under any circumstances, get the courts involved.
The guardian in their case, Linrod Douglas, appeared in court today, and he pleaded guilty to 15 counts, including money laundering, theft, and exploitation of the elderly. He could be sentenced anywhere from 25 to 220 years in prison. For the CBS 12 News I-Team, I'm Danielle Waugh.
This morning, the CBS 12 News I-Team continues our investigation into guardianship in Florida. It's a system that's supposed to protect our most vulnerable and their money. But too often, that power gets abused. And for those in the program, there's no way out.
I-Team investigator Danielle DeRoss joins us now with the story of a veteran on the Treasure Coast who lost his life savings to a court-appointed guardian.
That's right, Matt and Sam. It was this veteran's son who noticed something very wrong, tens of thousands of dollars missing from his father's estate. And it turns out that was just the tip of the iceberg.
He was a stubborn German.
Larry Lenhart can laugh and smile when he talks about his late father, Richard, a World War II veteran who retired in Stewart.
He was very independent. He just wanted to take care of his own affairs, and he wanted to go back to his condo.
But underneath it is a profound sadness.
Oh, I missed a guy, sure.
And anger about the court-appointed guardian who stole his father's money.
It was rough. I was trying to grieve at one time and trying to get some justice at the same time. And like I say, angry, the more I covered, the more angry I got.
His father's guardianship started the way so many cases do, with a dispute in the family. As Richard's health declined, his children couldn't agree on who should manage their dad's money. So a judge appointed a professional guardian named Linrod Douglas.
Did you have any say in who the guardian was?
None whatsoever. I had no reason to doubt him because of the court system. I trusted the court.
For 2 years, Linrod Douglas controlled every aspect of Richard's life. He sold Richard's condo and moved him into a Wellington nursing home owned by Douglas. When Richard died, Larry found only a few $1,000s in his father's account.
Yeah, these were just the legal documents that it took me to get to where we're at.
Fortunately, Larry kept copies of his father's bank records.
Yeah, we got all kinds of files in here.
So he knew that Richard had more than $200,000 in CDs at the bank. He asked Douglas where that money was.
And I said, well, what about the CDs? And he said, well, I could never find the CDs. And I said, well, I said, I could probably do that because I had copies of everything. So I contacted the bank. The bank told me that they were cashed, and they were cashed in September of that year he took over. And there was only really, he's the only one that legally could have cashed them.
Larry filed a complaint which triggered an investigation. According to court records, Linrod Douglas cashed $265,000 in CDs right after he was named guardian. Following the money, investigators say Douglas spent nearly $150,000 of Richard's money to pay off a mortgage, $75,000 to buy a new property, and $4,000 to pay off a credit card. And it didn't end there. They uncovered 4 more wards Douglas was stealing from. Richard and Betty Weber lost about $10,000. Their daughter Joan telling the I-Team as guardian, Douglas had no trouble accessing the money and using it for whatever he pleased.
I'm always angry.
Angry at who?
At the system, at the people that did this to my mother and father.
Is it just guardianship that you investigate?
Anthony Palmieri is the chief guardianship investigator at the Palm Beach Clerk of Courts.
What does that Linrod Douglas case say about the system?
I think the system as designed is working in a lot of cases, but whenever the system goes off the rail, one case is too many cases, and we have to look at those cases. We have to analyze what went right, what went wrong, and make corrections.
Today, Lynn Douglas is behind bars awaiting sentencing after pleading guilty to 15 charges related to guardianship fraud. Larry Lenhart will be in the courtroom and ask the judge for the maximum sentence.
I'd like to see him off the streets forever myself. You know, it'd be sending a good message to the rest of the guardians. If you're gonna play, you're gonna pay a little bit here. I think Dad appreciates some justice on this.
Larry tells me that this is not just about the money for him. He is calling on state lawmakers to take a look at this and reform the guardianship system so that criminals can no longer take advantage of the people that they are literally being paid to protect.
A good thing Larry kept all of those notes and all of those the details, all those forms. But who is supposed to be watching over these guardians while this is happening?
There are supposed to be checks and balances. The courts, the judges, they are supposed to review financial reports every year. There's a big problem, though. Guardians can conceal huge sums of money. So tonight we're going to dig into that much deeper. We'll show you exactly how this happened. Hopefully by shining a light on this, that's a room for improvement in the guardianship system.
All right, great stuff there. Thank you very much, Danielle.
I like to go to church.
Hey, were you at worship night?
I like to go to theme parks.
They put actual lemons in there.
I like to go to the park. I like to go all kinds of places. One night I came here and I just watched the sunset.
Michael Lincoln McCrate is a man on the move.
People know me everywhere in Port St. Lucie. Literally everywhere.
Whether it's going to church, community events, or work, the freedom to get behind the wheel and go is something he doesn't take for granted.
I go pretty much anywhere and everywhere now that I have a vehicle, because one of the rights that was taken away from me is not allowed to have a driver's license.
Not only was Michael not allowed to drive, he couldn't vote or even spend his own money. He couldn't go anywhere or do anything without permission of his court-appointed guardian.
Why am I here? Why am I here? Why did I deserve this?
Michael, who has a disability, says things started going wrong when he turned 18 and aged out of the foster care system. Suddenly, he was being evaluated by doctors and lawyers with no explanation, until a St. Lucie County judge told him someone had petitioned the court to make Michael a ward of the state.
They were like, okay, you're incapacitated, all your rights are taken. And I didn't even get a chance to speak.
They never educated you about this guardianship. They never told you that you have a right to challenge it. This is wrong.
You're telling me? Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
You're telling me.
Michael was sent to live in this Port St. Lucie group home that he says felt like jail. For 2 years, the court-appointed guardian controlled every aspect of his life, cutting off his phone and internet access, monitoring him closely every time he left the house. Desperate, he hatched a plan and pretended to need cash to buy a book. The guardian gave him $60, which he used to secretly buy a cheap cell phone. Then Michael hid in a closet and called a lawyer.
Mike's experience really just goes to show and speaks to what an amazing advocate he is, because he realized this is not what I want and was determined to get out of it.
Viviana Bonilla Lopez is an advocate with Disability Rights Florida. She tells CBS 12 News Michael's lawyer quickly realized that he was more than capable of living on his own. So she petitioned the court for a new capacity evaluation, and an independent examiner agreed that Michael should be released from guardianship. Now he's participating in a program called Supported Decision Making.
Look at that house way out there. That's beautiful.
That means a team of trusted adults, like his pastor, will help advise and guide him when making big decisions. Michael is the first person in Florida to get out of a guardianship using the supported decision-making model, and his case has already had an impact on others.
It's something that is definitely gaining momentum, and we're trying to educate the courts and judges about this.
The fact that somebody like you could be placed into a guardianship, what does that say about the system?
That there's cracks in the system that's not being fixed. there's major cracks.
Today, Michael is working to fix them.
Michael, it's good to have you here with us today.
He's working on a bill to free other people trapped in guardianships like he was. Asked to serve on a statewide guardianship task force with clerks, judges, lawyers, and advocates, he represents wards.
And I look forward to making a difference in the guardianship statutes.
This new task force is taking a critical look at the entire guardianship system and will ultimately recommend reforms to the Florida legislature.
This is something where we should be the leading state in the union as far as having the best guardianship program out of any 50 states, and we don't. That's the honest truth.
Truth found in news stories like this one.
And I'm always angry.
As the I-Team first reported, Guardian Lynrod Douglas was convicted of stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars from his wards. And it goes far beyond embezzlement. Other guardians have been charged with mismanagement, neglect, even abuse. Michael and Viviana want judges to consider supported decision-making first before putting someone in a guardianship.
And we're hoping that it will really take a lot of people out of the system of guardianship for whom there are better alternatives out there under Florida law.
Too often, she says, judges aren't even aware that they have alternatives, like supported decision-making. How does it make you feel to know that there are people who are suffering just like you suffered?
PO'd, upset, ticked, but that's why I'm doing what I'm doing to make a difference in people's lives.
In the meantime, Michael is enjoying his newfound freedom.
Drive like the wind.
He's got a busy social life.
What did it taste like?
An apartment.
When I'm with Guardian Angels, I have full gear.
And holds down a job as a security officer at a local country club. If the people who put you in guardianship could see you now, what do you think they would think of your life?
They would probably be jealous or ticked just because they said that I would not get my rights back. But maybe they'll be proud of me. You never know.
The bill to prioritize supported decision-making didn't make it out of committee last session, but people working on the law are confident that legislators will revisit it next year. They say right now there is so much more awareness and interest in guardianships, so momentum is growing for reform. Danielle DeRoss, CBS 12 News.
Guardians are paid to protect our most vulnerable and watch over their assets. The CBS 12 News I-Team has been investigating Florida's guardianship program and the many loopholes that allow bad actors to exploit the elderly and the disabled.
Well, tonight we have a story of a woman who may be one of Florida's worst guardians. She's accused of mismanaging millions and even causing the death of one of her clients.
I-Team investigator Danielle DeRoss is asking, how could something like this happen?
Her name is Rebecca Furley, and she's from Ocala, but she had a guardianship business that spanned the entire state, giving her complete control of the lives and the finances of hundreds of elderly and disabled Floridians.
That was what we were promised by FDLE when we...
They called us and said they have a warrant and come arrest you.
This was the moment when years of complaints finally caught up with Rebecca Furley. Arrested and charged with abuse and neglect, she'll soon stand trial for the death of a 75-year-old Navy veteran named Stephen Stryker, who a judge placed in her care. Stryker had a medical condition that made it difficult to swallow. Investigators say his guardian signed a do not resuscitate order without court approval, even though the ward expressed a desire to live. According to this Inspector General report, Stryker's family and healthcare surrogate pleaded with Furley to remove the DNR, but she refused, saying she files DNRs for wards regularly. Then in 2019, while hospitalized in Tampa, Stryker choked, lost consciousness. The medical staff was unable to attempt to resuscitate him, and he died.
She's a huge example of everything that's wrong with the guardianship system.
As a guardianship reform advocate, Dr. Sam Sugar has researched countless abuse cases and tells the I-Team this is the worst he's seen.
I call her the apex predator in probate.
Rebecca Furley was a Medicaid specialist at a hospital in Central Florida. That's when she began her other career as a professional guardian, and it's believed that's how she met many of her future wards. In just a few years, Furley built the largest guardianship enterprise in the state, managing more than 400 wards across 19 counties, controlling everything from their medical care to their money. She petitioned the court for many of these wards, but in other cases, judges and even hospitals recommended her.
She has done things that no other guardian in the history of Florida has ever done. Her volume, the money haul, the influence she had with the judges is astonishing. She could do no wrong.
But the CBS 12 News I-Team uncovered complaints and accusations of abuse against Rebecca Furley going back years. One of the first reports came from an unlikely source. This Gainesville polka musician named Angela Woodhull. She is also a published author, and perhaps most important, a licensed private investigator. Angela began looking into Rebecca Furley after a judge appointed Rebecca the guardian of Angela's mother, Louise.
Did you or your mother have any interactions with Rebecca?
Never. I have never spoken to this woman ever.
What about your mother? Did she deal with her much?
She never met her, ever.
So how could she possibly make decisions in your mother's best interest?
She can't.
That's a camera, Mom.
Angela tried to fight the guardianship by taking this video of her mother in a nursing home.
I hate this place. Why? Why do you hate this place? I want out of here.
This horrible stuff. This is like out of a horror film.
She says it showed her mother still had mental capacity and didn't need a guardian.
She was astute.
But a judge disagreed, and Rebecca Furley stopped allowing unsupervised visits. Louise's condition quickly deteriorated, and she died just 3 months later.
I wish I could pull her out of the camera and give her a big hug and tell her how sorry I am that all of this happened to her. I think she would say the same.
Louise went into guardianship with a $1 million estate, her daughter estimates, but at the time of her death, she was essentially penniless. Angela blames Rebecca Furley for draining the accounts.
I started to get the feeling, since I am a licensed private investigator, this cannot be. If they're doing this to me, I think they're doing this to other people.
Angela tracked down and interviewed families of 15 other wards and compiled this report detailing dozens of allegations of missing money and property. She sent it to local and state police, even the Florida Attorney General. But for 12 years, she says no one listened, and Rebecca Furley's guardianship practice kept growing. In 2012, she was given control of Shirley Blake, an Alzheimer's patient with $3 million in assets.
When you interacted with Rebecca, what was she like?
Horrible. She was rude, pushy.
Shirley's daughter, Robbie, tells the I-Team Rebecca moved their mother to a nursing home far from family and threatened to cut off their visitation.
Little by little, every asset that my mother had disappeared.
By the time Shirley died in 2016, Robbie says $2 million were gone. She wants Furley's finances investigated.
Someday they're going to make a documentary about this woman, the story of Rebecca Furley, and the facts, the truth is far worse than any fiction you could come up with.
To this day, Rebecca Furley has not been charged with any financial crime. But according to this audit by the Orange County Clerk's Office, Furley collected at least $4 million in fees that were not approved by the court, and she was caught double billing her clients. The case took a shocking and morbid turn when a raid of her Orlando office turned up the cremated remains of 9 people believed to be her wards. Police have been working to identify those ashes so they can be returned to their families.
We reached out to Rebecca Furley through her attorney to get a comment for this story, but we never heard back. Her criminal trial could start as soon as December. Reporting for the CBS 12 News I-Team, I'm Danielle DeRoss. I met Jan Garwood at her home outside of Orlando, where she is still struggling to get back on her feet. She knows she is one of the lucky ones who was able to get out of guardianship, and she's sharing her story now to warn others, letting them know what is at stake when a court puts a professional guardian in control.
I think the waterfall is beautiful. The water is nice.
The sky is gorgeous. Look at it.
Jan Garwood is enjoying the little things in life, like the view outside her window of her new apartment in Altamont Springs, even if it is mostly empty.
I picked up my wonderful TV from a pawn shop. I'd never been to one before. But
at 72 years old, Jan is starting over.
I live on coffee, so my coffee cup is here.
Rebuilding the life that she lost under a court-appointed guardian.
Scary, very scary, but I have to do it.
Jan was a hairdresser with 3 boys. A few years ago, she was in a violent car accident. Then, her 31-year-old son, Adam, died unexpectedly. Like any mother would, she struggled with grief. Until 2017, when someone, she suspects a cousin, contacted a professional guardian, suggesting Jan should be declared incapacitated. According to court records, that guardian was Rebecca Furley, a woman who amassed hundreds of wards across the state of Florida and who has been arrested and charged in the death of one of them. The I-Team obtained the petition filed in this case. Furley argued that Jan should be placed in her care because she, quote, suffered from a seizure disorder, had poor insight and judgment, and is a vulnerable at-risk senior. A judge approved. Jan was taken from her home and placed in a memory care facility in Seminole County, even though she has never been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, dementia, or any other memory-related condition. In 2018, Furley was taken off Jan's case, and a new guardian named Denise Willis took over. For 3 years, Jan says she was kept locked up in that facility. No visitors allowed.
You must have felt like you were in prison.
I was, wasn't I?
Last year, she got a lucky break. A friendly nurse smuggled Jan a cell phone. She logged on to Facebook and posted a plea for help.
And I wrote on there, I'm locked up in a facility that I don't belong to be in. Is there somebody out there that can help me? Please call a lawyer or call somebody and get me out. I'm not supposed to be here. And she read it.
And I'm like, here's my number, call me.
Hillary Hogue, a guardianship reform advocate in Florida, happened to see that post and responded immediately. She says Jan's time in isolation was shocking, but not uncommon.
Jan's situation, unfortunately, it's bad, but there are so many other cases like Jan's with people that are in guardianships as we speak.
Hillary connected Jan to attorney Vito Ropo.
She didn't seem incompetent. She had checked the case. There's an order that she was 100% incapacitated. She lost all of the rights that you can lose in a guardianship. And in my talks with her, it did not sound that was appropriate.
Attorney Ropo asked the judge for another evaluation, and a second physician found Jan to be fully competent and deserving of her rights and freedom back. The guardianship was terminated, but that's not where Jan's story ends.
I wanted to go home, and they said, you don't have a home anymore.
What was that feeling like?
It broke my heart.
As a ward, Jan's guardians gained control of all of her assets. When she got out, she discovered everything was gone. Her house, her car, all of her possessions. According to this Inspector General report, Guardian Willis sold Jan's home without a proper appraisal for far less than Jan says it's worth. The Guardian also sold her car. As for all of her things, Jan has no idea where they are or if they've been sold. As for her money, Jan has almost nothing left. She's surviving on Social Security, and the audit discovered more than a year's worth of those payments are missing as well.
I think her case is really a travesty. It's a failure of the system in a lot of different ways. I'm glad that we were able to get her out, but it's, it was too late. It already inflicted so much damage on her.
There is no making up for what I lost unless I can help other people. That is my only goal, is to stand up and say, don't let a guardian near your mother, your father, your aunt, get rid of guardianship. What do we need it for?
We reached out to that guardian, Denise Willis, to get her side of the story, but she never returned our calls or our emails. For the CBS 12 News I-Team, I'm Danielle DeRoss.